Hi, welcome back to the Dylan Rounds case. Welcome if you're currently here in the live chat. I appreciate it, especially the people who are here nearly all the time. So this video is going to focus on a range of different key bullet points. One of those times again, whilst the live chat is ongoing, you can share your own thoughts, opinions and reactions, as well as talk about a range of different things in between. One of those times where I need to list off all these bullet points which were scattered about on some of my notes previously. If I do them as standalone videos, it'd be very fragmented and like small 2, 4, 5 minute clips. It just seems a bit messy that. Just put it all into one, like a bulk video again, but not too complex, right? So this video is going to be covering Robert Aviles, finally. I know other channels have, but I want to cover it now myself and add on with additional theories and points, maybe motives as well, okay? Said I was going to do them, now I am going to cover it. Also, some mention by Black Dove about a lookout on the 28th. I'll do a map analysis of that and share it with you later in this video, okay? Also, thoughts on Candice Cooley, like an update, taken into mind from the start, the middle, and recently, okay? And you can give your thoughts and opinions to that yourself in the chat. Share what you want, okay? And then lastly, if there is time, okay, I'll try and look at the ABC4 News Utah coverage of Dylan Rounds most recently. I don't know if I'll play the whole clip to you, unless I play small clips and then react to it and then play it back, forth. I don't know, I've got to think of copyright as well and all that other stuff. We'll just see how it goes, okay? So let's just first look at Robert Aviles and then move on from there. So Robert Aviles, I've covered him briefly previously. We know he's got a criminal history of burglary, stealing things, possibly even helping people find items too. Also possession of drugs, drug charges, all that. I don't know if he's a violent person. I've not really heard any crimes around that, physical, psychological, that type. Maybe he isn't like that, though he's got a criminal history. What ties on with that? Similarities with the others like Brenner, Chase Venstra, a little bit Don Hatley, The next link, which has not been mentioned on my channel at least, is that Robert Aviles is good friends with Chase Venstra. That's kind of interesting, that. I don't know how far it dates back, but as we've previously seen, Don Hatley was good friends with Jim Brenner. Now we're seeing another, you call it partnership, friendship? Yeah, friendship. Close ties, close bonds, okay? They know each other fairly well, probably. They might hold certain secrets, keep secrets from everyone else. So that's kind of interesting. In addition, with Robert Aviles, he shared a trailer with Jim Brenner near the grain shed. That's what supposedly has been said. The source from that, I would say, was from the mob crew, okay? I know information can switch and change back and forth, but from the last I heard, that's what it was claiming, okay? So the most important part to take in mind from those like different connections is the similarities, and that is they kind of know each other in some way. Robert Aviles knows Chase Venstra because they are good friends. Robert Aviles knows Brenner because they lived together at some point, okay, shared a trailer. Chase Venstra, I think it's Chase Venstra who, was it Chase Venstra or was it Aviles, who had a girlfriend who was originally Brenner's. You got that as well. All these little ties and connections. And you could be thinking, so what? Someone like Robert Aviles would never have been mentioned if it wasn't for some of the other guys talked about in the case, and the same applies to maybe Kurt Wadsworth and some of the Wadsworth brothers. I think Candice said that originally, saying, oh, the only reason why all these other names are coming up for discussion and being associated with Dylan's case is because of the main suspects and stuff, and it's like these were people are irrelevant. Not quite, because when you start seeing these networks established, these connections and ties, sure, maybe there's only one or two suspects, but isn't it important to question and ask the friends of that suspect or family of that suspect? You know, I mean, like with Brenna's family, you know, with age might not be present anymore. But as for friends, you know, Robert Aviles, you know, has Robert Aviles been questioned about Brenna, considering they supposedly knew each other at some point? They're sharing a trailer. Did they share thoughts and secrets? Did Brenna ever get Aviles to hide any guns? I don't know. It happened with Don Hatley, didn't it? Maybe different situation because Don Hatley had his own place where he was living. With Aviles staying at Brenna's, it's not like he can force Aviles to hide guns when they're in the same exact place. I guess another similarity is that idea of sharing, you know, Aviles and Brenna living together, Brenna and Dylan in the past living together or in close proximity when doing the farming work and stuff. And from what we know of, at least, there could be things going on behind the scenes in the past, is when they, at the times when they were in most close proximity with one another, there didn't seem to be too much of a negative outcome. Didn't seem like there was any fights or scraps, anyone getting hurt. So with taking that into mind, it could reinforce the idea of it would have to be a person who is unstable, who can just snap, switch and change just like that. You know, there's any really way around it, unless it was some long-standing grudge between one another or a few people, and it just lasted until the person finally said enough is enough or decided to take revenge. But I don't think that's the case. I think it's more to do with the snapping out all of a sudden, uncontrollable. And obviously that seems to be Brenner because of his personality and his past actions. But Chase Venstra is also unstable as well. And even though Don Hatley has appeared somewhat okay, what we previously heard of, and him having a trucking company and his crimes being less serious, we've recently hearing about Don Hatley snapping at Candice verbally, and then also getting in between Justin, and I think it was Kurt, with a shovel. You know, you've seen a side to him. Okay, it might not be present, up-to-date stuff, these observations, but it is coming out now. It is being shared and talked about, mainly from the mouth of Candice, because she's one that's either witnessed it or it's been passed on to her, and then she's passed it on to us and people on YouTube. So that's the way it seems to be. So with that in mind, are there any other individuals who have lost their temper, suddenly snapped and turned, aside from Brenner, aside from Don Hatley, aside from Chase Venstra? What about Robert Aviles? What about Kurt Wadsworth? I know we've seen Kurt Wadsworth drunk at times and a bit verbal, but what about when he's sober? Does he snap? Does he just break like that and show another side to him? I don't know. If you know, leave comments down below in the chat and your thoughts, because the way I see it is you probably could eliminate certain people as the main suspect if they don't snap. You know, if they're kind of calm, or it takes something like something to really annoy them, then it can't be them in Dylan's situation, because from the looks of it, Dylan didn't seem to cause any trouble. He was just focused on farming, and that was basically it. I mean, the time when Don Hatley and Dylan had an argument in the past, who caused it? I'm not sure. If Don Hatley got pretty worked up and that was because of Dylan. Is there any small chance you could put an argument forwards saying, although it shouldn't have happened, Dylan disappearing, Dylan might have started an argument or might have just said a certain remark which then really angered the suspect at the time? That's all I'm thinking of. If not, then it's probably still to do with an ambush and it's heat of the moment type situation. But what I would say, if the likes of Robert Aviles isn't the type to snap or get aggressive on the spot like that from 0 to 60 or 0 to 100 like that. Okay, he might not be the main suspect, but he might know something. I don't know about the polygraph test. I can't remember if he took one. I know we've heard about the other people, but what about Robert Aviles? When I last heard the last Candice Cooley interview, or one of them at least in recent time, mentioned about those polygraph tests, Aviles wasn't mentioned in that. So I don't know if he took one or not. If you know, leave a comment down below. Could be interesting to know about that. If he hasn't took one, then I guess he should. You know, we've got, you know, the likes of Chase Venstra, who wasn't even a part of the investigation yet. He failed the polygraph, so he must know something. He must be hiding something. So why not do the same with Robert Aviles? Let's see what happens with him. Because if it turns out that someone like Chase Venstra and Aviles both failed the polygraph test, then it could mean they both know something about the main suspect responsible. And if you tie in what I said earlier about the friendships and the connections, okay, maybe Chase Venstra witnessed what happened with Dylan or was nearby when the main suspect did their thing. That main suspect could be Brenner, and Brenner might have come across Chase Venstra or the other way around, and he was told to keep quiet. He may have confided Venstra with Robert Aviles since they're good friends. You know, that's what friends do, share things, but also keep secrets. So, although Robert Aviles might not have been present at the time of when Dylan's disappearance occurred in the area, he might have not seen anything, he might have not got hands-on, but the middleman, someone like Chase Venstra, you know, shared and confessed to Aviles, and Aviles has kept quiet to keep Chase Venstra safe from out of jail. Obviously, it hasn't exactly worked out because Venstra has been arrested, and I think he's still in jail because of the gun charges, okay? Main point need to bring up, I know some people have I've already said this in the chat earlier on, but Robert Aviles was in prison, you know, a few months ago, and I think he only just came out near to when Dylan went missing. It was either near to when Dylan went missing or it was just after he went missing. So you could rule Aviles out in a way. You know, he served his time, he's been locked up and he's only just come out. He's not gonna re-offend or do another crime all of a sudden, because then that would be silly, and it's probably something he wouldn't want to do because he doesn't want to go back. You might end up back there someday in the future, but not literally after coming out. You know, it wouldn't make any sense. But if Aviles, whether it be whilst he was in prison or when he just came out, maybe at some point Chase Venstra told Aviles, and this is the other thing you got to take into mind, as one is released, the other one is arrested. You could say that, okay, Aviles has come out of prison, Chase Venstra has gone in, or in custody, whatever you call it, because of the gun charges. But if I'm correct in saying, from what I've previously read, I don't know if it was an article, I think it might have been an article, that Venstra did make a call or two whilst in prison. You know, you get those phones in prison, and he was calling someone. I don't know who it was or what it was about. Can those calls be tracked? I mean, it's inaccurate, but I'm just thinking of, what am I thinking of? like when you see it on shows where someone's in prison and they phone up someone saying, you got to get me out of here, or you got to help, you got to make that deal, you got to send in the packages. I mean, maybe that could be unrealistic. If the phone calls are traced and monitored, then probably someone like Venstra wouldn't confess to someone whilst being in prison on unrelated charges, because then there'd be more evidence to charge him for additional stuff. But if the calls aren't monitored, he might have called Aviles and told him about what went on, what happened to Dylan, if he was a witness and saw it or forced to participate. And if not that, because I'm not aware of the dates, if it ties in line with Aviles being released before Dylan going missing, just before, then there would have been time for Venstra, before getting arrested, to talk with Aviles in public. So depends which way you look at it, but as like Candice said, she hasn't ruled certain people out completely. She's just mainly focusing on the odd few people. But I just think of it as there's probably a main suspect, and then there's like one or two individuals that either assisted by choice or forced to, and then you might get the other one or an additional person that knows something because they're either connected, friends with the suspect, or the secondary suspect, or the secondary suspect has passed on information and confessed to them. So like it trickles down. That's why I say it. I know some people have talked about there's like more than one suspect. I know other people have said there's an additional suspect that hasn't been talked about or revealed yet still, I guess. There's some people saying there's like a puppet master at the top controlling all these guys like Brenner, Chase Venstra, Don Hatley possibly, whether it be incriminating them, putting the blame on them, controlling them in some way. You know, depending how you look, it could get very deep, and in a way you don't really want to do that unless you've got more evidence and stuff. So it's just like briefly hovering around. But I just wanted to share that with you to do with Aviles, because there was a few additional points I've not mentioned before on the channel. And, you know, it's kind of interesting how, in a way, they all know each other in some way, and they've all been involved in the case too. Some of you would be thinking, well, no shit, you know, the people that are closest to Dylan or last in contact with Dylan in some way or in proximity of Dylan living will all be questioned and maybe treated as suspects at some point at a time. Well, yeah, but then you've got some external individuals who don't directly live in the area but have had contact with Dylan or have been friends with someone that has been in contact with Dylan. So an example would be Chase Venstra not living but coming across Dylan before going missing, and then Robert Aviles, who doesn't know Dylan, if I'm correct in saying, and doesn't literally live near Dylan no more, but Aviles does know Chase Venstra. It's when you get all these names, the more names that start appearing on the list, it's a bit of a tongue twister. Make sure you don't say the wrong name when talking about a certain individual. It can get a little bit messy. I don't know if I should start abbreviating names like JB, CV, RA. I don't know. I think that could get confusing as well, because I've heard of JB and then there's a JD, and then it's like, who's JD? Like, is that Dylan's friend? So I think I'll just stick to the formal names. Okay, it's like with Jim Brenner. Sometimes, well, most people call him Jim, but his main name's called James, and I used to call him James. Then when I heard people saying Jim, I thought, who's Jim? Is that someone else? That's why it gets messy. Back in the Kenny Veach mystery, when it came to referring to people, not people in the case, but just people that watch or make videos. Like with Jeff, you had a Jeff Clark, you had a Jeff H, you had a Jeff C, you had 3 Jeffs. Now this time you got Andrew, you got another Andrew, you got Andrew Culver, and it's like, how all these names, you know, who's who. So yeah. So I think that concludes the part about Aviles. Just a small, you know, portion just to look at. Okay, Who knows if his name will come up again in the future, whether he is questioned further, interviewed, polygraph test, yes or no. I guess time will tell, because with these like little interviews and Candice coming out and saying stuff, she might say something about Aviles, a point we've not heard of before, in the future. Time will tell though. So now I think it's time to get onto Google Earth and do that little analysis of what Black Dove was talking about. Following on from what Black Dove stated in a previous live video premiere of mine, it was the 28th of May, same day Dylan went missing, when supposedly there was a lookout parked up, whether it be in or near to Montello on the 233 highway. I believe that's what it's called. When I did do a Google search, it came to this spot, so maybe it's within this area. Though, let's not get too confused, because nearby in this area, it would be near the Saddle Sore Bar or the gas station, Justin Rounds was spotted parked up for almost a week post Dylan's disappearance. I believe that was more of a stakeout, observing the behaviour. It is interesting though, we must note it, because it makes you think Justin Rounds must have had some kind of suspicion with an individual or group, and that he thought the first place to go was Montello. Makes you think, if there are any additional points of information which are missing and you have, feel free to add in the comment section and or the chat right now, okay? So that aside, with Justin Rounds being there too at a later point, we refer back to the 28th. How do we know it was a lookout? Was it their behaviour? Was it them standing around waiting for something, their eyes looking left to right? Were they in a vehicle parked up or just stood by the side of it? Did they have binoculars? Did they have a phone? Were they trying to act like they were trying to blend in? That's what we've got to try and think. And also, who was it? Who was the witness of that sight? Because Black Dove wasn't the witness, because they're not in the area. But they must have received information from someone at a point in time about it. Is it misinformation? Who knows? But, it's not giving any direct names of anyone. It's just a person was seen, looking, waiting, on the day Dylan went missing. I guess if a name was mentioned and dropped, you could say it's trying to shift the blame onto someone to cause a diversion, to cause misdirection, that type of thing. But it's only brief, the information I heard, so maybe it is a bit more genuine, or it was simply a misunderstanding. When you look at this area, okay, supposedly there is a neighbourhood watch, which is also known as the militia. They could be observing the area, like how you might get bodyguards at a place. You get some kind of private military that either control an area, a town, or a city. It can happen, and it has happened around the world. So a place like this, where it's remote, where there might be a form of hierarchy, that could be how it works. Now, for this lookout, if they were present in the area, where would they be exactly? If any of you know, drop a comment down below. Do you think they were near the town or within? Were they down here, parked up by the roadside on this dirt road? Or were they closer to Montello town, near to Saddle Sore Bar, the gas station, or Sentinel Park? Let me know your thoughts. We even have a little image what we can load from down here. As you can see, we have a different angle and image compared to what we've previously seen along the highway this image quality is a lot clearer. I don't know what it dates back to, it doesn't seem to give a date. But is there a chance that this supposed lookout was parked up here, such as that white pickup truck? Or was it further down the road? Much further down? Who knows? Are they waiting for the task to be done? Are they waiting to receive information? Are they working for them, or just simply friends? And why would they be in Montello looking out? Wouldn't it make more sense to be in Lucin, near to Dylan's farm? Or simply this 233 highway? I mean, it could be further on because it runs all the way into Lucin. I think we'll take a look in a second. There's more to be talked about. So as we see this, you've got the Cowboy Bar Cafe. Okay. Over this way, you have some trailers. There appears to be a slight error with the image. That's very, very dodgy. That is not how it looks in real life. Someone messed up with the imaging. But yes, an area like this with the type of people present, possible hierarchy. There could be people working for others and / all being controlled. You never know in a place like this. Oh, for God's sake! I'm trying to be serious and doing a serious voice, and now I'm met with the fucking mystery machine Scooby-Doo. Oh my God. Why does this happen? It's literally like what that person said in the chat, that as the conversations go on, it just gets weirder by the day. It's like as my videos go on, the more serious it gets. I end up stumbling across like, oh my God, what did it say? wickedcamper.com. And it says, rent me. Yeah, you're gonna rent me? I'm such a naughty van. I've been used so much. Yeah, I've got a lot of mileage. A lot of people have ridden me. Oh my God, I'm so dry by now. I need fixing. Rent me. Wow. And obviously, you got the mystery machine on the side. Oh my God, you know, imagine if Scooby-Doo was present now in Montello. Ricky? Where are we? We're in Montello? Oh, Cowboy Bar. Little Scooby Snacks. This ain't the mystery machine. Raggy, this ain't the one. I think they're gonna kidnap us. Raggy. Oh, something like that. And you know, depending what goes on in a place like this, if there's inappropriate behaviour, I don't think Scooby will be the same Scooby anymore. Be like, Raggy, Raggy, I'm a mess, man. They really fucked me up, man. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Raggy, oh no, I'm so lost. Raggy, please, let me out. Let me out right now. Oh, I won't go. Maybe that could happen. And so, as I return back to my serious voice, let's take a look further down that highway. We might as well, whilst we're here. Although it was said by Black Dove that this supposed lookout was near the town of Montello, quite possibly. But how nearby, that's another question. It would seem more practical if this lookout, waiting, observing the traffic, was closer to Lucin, right? Unless they were under the impression that a visitor like Kurt Wadsworth, or a friend of Dylan's, or a family member, was in Montello or further west, and was possibly on the way going to Lucin. That's the only reason why I would think of a lookout, because what else and why would you have someone there? Is it to monitor the police traffic? Who comes, who goes? I mean, if it's already a ghost town low population, it's not that dense, then it's like, do you really need to be looking out for anyone? Though maybe if you put the argument forwards and say if you follow that highway as it branches from Nevada into Lucin onto the other side, you know, although we don't have street view, I'll get as close as I can possibly. Okay, so you've got the railway there, and the main road, what we've seen before, which I've always referred to, was this one here, but there is no way to get on it, unfortunately. Though, if I get as close as I can, say about there, and you imagine the road, the additional one, over that way, which is approaching Dylan's farm over that way, then it could make more sense. Because you got to think, you don't want any witnesses, right? Although Lucin is a ghost town, classified as abandoned, there will still be the odd visitor, camper. There'll still be the odd hiker, farm worker, people passing by. Although it's not as frequent, it can still happen. Because let's not forget, on the 27th of May, when Dylan was doing his own thing, seeding, doing the farm work, late at night, there were people present within the area, witnesses, people camping out in the area, and that was at that time. So, if they were present on the 28th as well, maybe that's why there was a lookout to ensure that they leave in time, or that they don't come back, or that no one else comes by. And if so, maybe phone the suspect up and say, hey, we've got a problem. There's people approaching the farm. You better get that job done quick. Have you taken Dylan out yet? Yes? Well, you better dispose of him quick too, just in case anyone arrives. You don't want to be caught in the act, do you? So that could be how it goes. And whilst there's certain bits of evidence scattered about, you know, the vehicle being power washed, it being locked, the seat being adjusted, all-wheel drive being set on, and the boots being found near the dirt mound dumped, makes you think it was a bit of a messy job, possibly. Were they in a rush? Was it a group or a singular person? Could certain evidence have been left behind because that lookout kind of, in a way, scared them? Like, it was a false call, saying, oh, there's someone coming, or it looks like there's someone going to the farm, when they weren't. Who knows? But, you know, if you've got your own theories, your own opinions on this, feel free to list down below. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if there was a lookout, some kind of surveillance, a community watch, because if they know each other and are friends, they will be looking out for one another too. I guess time will tell if any more additional information comes out about that stuff. If you wish to spread the theory, the idea and the concept, feel free to do so. Right, so now I think it's just worth talking about Candice, okay? I don't think there's time to do the news coverage video. I'll do that in a separate video, all right? But as with Candice, okay, it has ultimately gone back and forth, like how people see her, okay? Like, towards the start, the very beginning, I'm not sure how it was exactly. I don't think there was too much suspicion going around because it was all new. It only just happened. You know, how you react can be excused because of what's going on in the moment. But then as time has gone on and things have developed, or certain truths have come out, certain behaviour has been observed, the switching and the changing, certain wording and language, you start to see different sides. I'll give you a little breakdown. So from my own point of view, when I first came in, which would have been a month after Dylan going missing, I believe, and when I started hearing about Candice and things going on, similar to the Kenny Veach case, I was considering, are the family or a family member involved in some way, whether it be taking Dylan out or assisting in his disappearance, because that's how it seems with the Kenny Veach case. And to an extent, there was evidence to prove that as well. So that's the first thing I looked at. When I started hearing Candice talk, when I started seeing her body language, facial expressions in those interviews, at first I was like, oh, the way they're acting, because they weren't really crying or showing any tears at that time. And the way they were talking, almost like normal voice, and they were kind of still as well and giving eye contact, not too much, not too little. They didn't seem too agitated. I was thinking, oh, do they know something? Are they involved in some way? Are they calm to an extent because they know Dylan's okay? Or they don't want to give any suspicion off because they are involved in a negative way? That's how I saw it. And I guess that's when things started emerging, where people did show up and agree and start giving their own thoughts. Arguably, other people were more stricter and more concentrated on Candice knowing something about Dylan's outcome. Some kind of, darkness, if you want to call it that. People were leaving all different types of comments and thoughts and opinions, and it was kind of targeting Candice, which is what it is. As for me, I was still going a bit back and forth, because it's like, you can only go so much. You need to see what happens with time and how things develop with people. And as time went on, and also looking back at previous things I might have not been present to hear at the time, and looking at contradictions back and forth on top of a bit of hypocrisy, okay? And that was like along the lines of both criticizing and complaining certain individuals or groups, platforms, whilst also talking good about them at other times, or excusing some people but not others, criticizing some because of the misinformation, but also contributing to misinformation as well early on, calling out people for exploring when they shouldn't be in certain areas because it might affect evidence. Yet Candice was the one that impacted evidence at the start, and then the police assisted and didn't help with their own actions. You can say, as a whole, it's like collective, multiple people involved in different ways. We might as well throw the point in right now. At every moment, every part of the timeline, there would have been comments made by people saying Candice can be excused because of what she's going through, what's going on. Yeah, to an extent, yeah. Makes sense. But you must also understand that there are valid contradictions made, valid moments of, being a hypocrite as well. That can't just simply just be brushed off like that. It's happened, it's been demonstrated, okay? I was one of the ones that came up and said, okay, with the breaking entry of Dylan's vehicle, although it wasn't a practical thing to do, and it might have messed up with evidence, it was done heat of the moment because of what was happening at the time. Panic set in. You might do irrational things or think irrationally, because how are you supposed to react on the spot? So, yeah. But you must also understand that the hypocrisy was you then later, at a later point, criticised other people for either planting things or finding stuff which isn't true evidence because it wasn't there originally, or touching things which shouldn't be touched, and yet she did it herself, but she's not admitted to what she's done herself. She's only calling out certain people. If she included herself whilst also having to go to other people, then it'd be very balanced, okay? It would be. aside from that, in terms of the criticising of other people, okay, so she has appeared on certain panels, certain channels, and then called out maybe salty pancakes, or maybe the other few other individuals here and there, even Brookie. Maybe that's more justified because of certain reasons. We can get more into that in a different video. But weird how Candice will call out and criticise certain YouTubers for their style of coverage or how they operate within the case, and yet some of the channels she's on do the same thing she criticises, but she's not criticising them because she's been given a platform and an opportunity to talk and be interviewed. So she isn't going to talk bad about the person she's been given some kind of entry to. So there is that, in a way. I mean, you can leave your thoughts down below to what you think. It's kind of weird how, with Candice, early on, I think it was kind of okay. And then a bit later, she then started calling out the LE. Maybe back then you would have thought, why is she calling them out? What have they done wrong? As time's gone on, and we've learnt about the LE, Box Elder County, with how they handled the case, the lack of transparency, communication, and all of that, delaying resources, not arresting people at the appropriate time, not being that helpful, almost getting a bit petty at times, involving family members of sheriffs, like the sheriff's wife, kind of unprofessional and stuff like that. It does make you understand to why Candice was calling them out. And when you take that all into mind, then it's kind of confusing that she criticises them, but then like runs back to them at a later point saying, oh no, investigations are underway now. At this moment in time, it's not practical for general public volunteers to come out into this area, this farm, because of the police doing their job. We need to focus on them, let them do their thing. And it's like, why? You criticised him. There's valid points to be made. They can't seem to be doing the job correctly. So why are you suddenly now relying on them? You're switching and changing it. That's the confusion. Another word that's reverberated and echoed repeatedly throughout is we need more communication, we need more communication, we need more communication, from what Candice has said. And that hasn't really come about or happened. Obviously, in most situations, might only be a certain level of communication you can get from the police, because other stuff is behind closed doors. If it's very serious, if it could impact the case, they've got to keep quiet. But I think in this situation, with how Ellie have handled stuff, I think there's probably significantly less communication compared to other cases and other people in different states and their departments. So yeah, there could be more communication, but I don't think it will happen unless a new, I don't know how the system works or the management, if that gets replaced, then maybe it could improve. Candice has said the individual people, some of the individuals within the police department have done well, are okay, but the ones above that do all the controlling and decision making, they're the problem. Maybe that's the case. Maybe they're the ones that need to be replaced. Who knows if it will happen. As with Candice, the most recent contradiction which stands out the most, okay, I'll mention that in a second. So from that bridge, from calling out LE to then relying on them, calling out YouTubers, but also relying on some to get a voice to spread the message. Bit back and forth. In the middle, revealing more about the LE and how they've treated the case can excuse Candice's attitude and behaviour on top of doing day-to-day things, on top of Dylan still being missing. It can explain her behaviour and it makes sense, right? At that moment, it was like, okay, I'm not suspicious of Candice. It appears normal. There's nothing dodgy going on. But then the most recent thing that's drawn me back to being wary and cautious is the whole dirt mound situation. Some people are like, the dirt mound was searched. She clearly said that. And it's like, hello? Have you got a weak signal? Have you got something rammed in your ear? Hello? Hello? Did you not hear what she said? She said that the dirt mound, there's weeds and roots growing on top. As you can clearly see, it's not been disturbed for a long time. But we did dig it up. We did take a look though, but it hasn't been searched. Can anyone explain that? Because that's how it basically was worded, if you summarise it. It appears it's not been touched. It is untouched, as it appears. We did dig it up, but also it's not been dug up. Yeah, don't understand that. To some people, could say the sand or whatever that dirt mound's made up of looks fresh, or it's been turned over, changed, altered with. Maybe, but then why is Candice saying it's not been touched then? She's almost like going against it, isn't she? I mean, it's fine, it's good, it's normal if it has been searched and nothing has been found. But then if you've got like images to prove that it has been searched, but then she's saying it hasn't been searched, and it's like, why is she doing that? Is she in denial? Or does she not want it to be searched? Is that what she's getting at? Or is her by saying it has been searched basically meaning it hasn't, but she's just saying that so no one goes back to check? That's what I'm thinking of. Salty Pancakes brought it up. Kurt Wadsworth said he's been there as well, but they've not touched it. So it's like, okay then. Because this adds on to the next point. If it hasn't been searched, or there's people that believe it hasn't been, and they've been out there as well, and they might have also been involved in handling of bits of evidence, or burying stuff, staging things, or touching things they shouldn't, then why did they not go to the dirt mound then? Why did they not touch that, dig that up? If they've done other things, they might as well do this whilst they're here. Or is it because they think the police need to be involved? But they would be aware, obviously, that the police aren't really doing their job. And that'll tie on to another thing in a second, okay? So that is the latest thing overall that's set me back in terms of thinking Candice is clean. If that makes sense. If it's just simply down to language and just poorly wording it because I'm on top of being preoccupied with other things and all the negative stuff going on, that could explain and excuse that, but there's not been an update since regarding that, the dirt mound and it being searched or not, being left untouched or touched. So until that video comes about or some kind of response or update, even on Facebook, then maybe a different point of view could be taken from it. But you can leave your thoughts in the chat. So leave your thoughts in the chat. What did you think and how did you feel about Candice Cooley at the start of the case? How did you think and feel about her midway through? And how do you think and feel about her right now, with that recent talk about the dirt mound and the heavy contradictions made within that? I think a key point to make note of, there's been previous contradictions, previous hypocrisy. There is a pattern of it. Things might become a bit more predictable with certain behaviour and actions. It might reveal more about the person than if it only occurred once. You know, things might start slipping, who knows? I guess time will tell regarding that. But leave all your thoughts in the chat right now, what you think, and even in the comment section too. As for the police, moving on to that, as I said, Candice says, oh yeah, this area has been searched. You're not going to find anything else here. And if you do, it'll only be things that have been planted there recently. So the likes of Dylan's farm, the grain shed, it's all been searched. Case closed. Jim Brenner's trailer, it's all been searched. Case closed. How can you be so sure? You know, if Candice relies on the LE but at the same time criticises them heavily because of how they've handled the case, which is a fair point, then why is she still confident despite all their incompetence? Despite her actually saying she doesn't really trust them or have much faith in them, but at the same time, in recent time, goes on to say, oh yeah, this area's been searched by the police, there's no need to come here. And but if you find anything, it won't be like old stuff, it'll be planted there, whether it be by yourself or somebody else that's been there. You know, in my mind, if I knew that the LE hasn't done their job properly, maybe regarding other aspects, other parts within the case, I'll start thinking, okay, so if they're lying about this and they've handled that poorly and they've not bothered with that, they've been a bit lazy here and they've cut the corners here and there, then what about this and that over there? Okay, I've seen how they've handled the evidence with the boots and how they've lied about that. They could have lied about searching Dylan's farm or the grain shed. They might have lied about using certain equipment. They might have lied about checking the shed or checking the dirt mound or checking the ground itself. They might have lied about it. And if not that, they may have done a quick scan around, but they might have not put too much effort in. You know, it's a fair point to make. If the LE are already dodgy and have done several things which doesn't make them appear any better, it makes them appear even worse and more unprofessional than ever before, then you start doubting and thinking, what have they missed or what have they not bothered checking? Have they not checked properly? Did they just brush over it because they can't be bothered or because they know something is there? With them allowing the likes of Brenner at the crime scene to move that grain truck, which would have had evidence on, and just move it freely and take items out of the shed and do whatever he wants with them and not be apprehended, questioned or anything like that, then do you honestly believe that the LE have thoroughly searched Dylan's land, his grain shed, his farm, and possible other areas too, Park Valley? Do you think they've properly searched Jim Brenner's burnt down trailer? Or could they be lying about that as well? I mean, if Candice or someone in agreement with Candice started saying to me, hey Andrew, you're all wrong what you say. Well, my response basically is, you've called LE out enough. You've criticised them enough. So why do you still believe in them searching the area thoroughly then? More negatives that outweigh the positives. You've already seen certain behaviour and negative actions, lies, and when someone lies or if a group lies once, then twice, then a third time, then you start thinking, oh, and everything else could be a lie as well. You start looking back and questioning what happened then, So, kind of gone backwards there. I wouldn't say in terms of solving the Dylan Rouse case, like as for like location or suspects, but in terms of how Candice has appeared, kind of gone backwards there, how she's presented herself at times. Obviously there can be certain things that can be cleared up and then can be fixed. It's happened before, when there's been a misunderstanding. This could be another misunderstanding, or it could be something a bit more deeper. I guess time will tell about that. I think, as for now, I shall depart as I've come to the end. I said that ABC4 Utah News video can be covered in a separate video. Give my thoughts on that. Might even do that in the morning and then do an additional video later on the other day. You can leave your thoughts down below. If you've got additional points or any questions, feel free to list that. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Good night.